said that reading makes you more empathetic. It's a way to escape your own life. It can take you into faraway lands and put you into people's shoes. It can even help you keep your brain healthy and sleep better. In today's show, we're going to be introducing you to Jan Beatty about her book American Bastard. Don't go away. We'll be right back with this very, very interesting backstory. If you're just joining us, then a very warm welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. I'm your host, Brigitte Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa, and our live stream is made possible by Creative Edge, StreamYard, and BeLive Media. A special warm welcome to you, our audience, whether you are joining us over on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter, and also over on Amazon Live. Just a reminder that this is an interactive live show, which means that you can talk to our author, you can ask us questions, post them. And today in our show, we're going to be talking to another amazing author, Jan Beatty, about her book, American Bastard. So if this is the first time you are watching the Writers' Corner live show, we have been going live for 3.5 years, and we'd love to give you a shout out if you are in the comments today. Mary Elizabeth Jackson, my amazing friend and co-host, is unable to join us today. We wish her well and hoping that she would be able to join us again next week on the Writers' Corner live show. But before we bring up our amazing guest again today, the author, Jan Beatty, we are all about helping you level up. And one of the things that everyone has to do these days is to appear on live video, talking about their book, goods, products, and services, and in this case, about their books. And it's something that authors had to do. They had to pivot because in-person live events is not possible. So if you're an author out there or anyone else out there that's needing to use video, there are a few things that you can do to look your best on camera. One of the things that I use, for example, is the Logitech Brio camera. The Logitech Brio camera has got trademarked right light HDR technology, which means that it automatically adjusts to the lighting situation, whatever that may be that you've got. And that's my one as it is mounted. So that helps you look professional. And then also, if you are wanting to increase or have better audio, I recommend the Samsung, which is the studio condenser microphone that I'm currently using. But you can also opt for something smaller, which is the Rode microphone. I recommend that. But either way, do invest in something that's going to give you good audio because you want to make sure that people can actually hear your message. So do invest in something like that. Also, something else that you can use for your live streaming, especially for those of you who don't have software that you use for your live streaming, and you have to use your phone, which is perfectly fine. But I do recommend that you use something like this little gimbal, which will help you stabilize your live stream. Alternatively, you could use something like that. But either way, you want to make sure that you do the best when you invest in this. So let us bring on our amazing guest for today, Jan Beatty. She's the winner of the Red Hen Nonfiction Award for her memoir, American Bastard. Her sixth book, Body Wars, was published by the University of Pittsburgh Press. Jan Beatty's new poems in the Body Wars, and we'll bring you that at another time, is also an amazing book that you would want to read. So without any further ado, let's welcome Jan Beatty. Jan, welcome. It is great to have you on the Writers Corner live show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Brigetti. I'm so excited to be here.
You are an accomplished author. Tell us a little bit about your journey in becoming an author. Um, how did you even get started as an author? Who encouraged you? Was it something that your parents encouraged you as a child? Or is it something that a teacher encouraged you? How did you first become an author?
Well, that's kind of a long journey, as it is with most writers, I think. But my new book, American Bastard, is about being adopted. And so my adoptive parents did not encourage me in that way. But I was born in a place called Rosalia Asylum and Maternity Hospital, and I was in that orphanage for the first year of my life. And so it took a lot of years to believe that I could be a writer, although I wrote during my whole growing up period, sort of as a way to stay alive, as a way to believe that I could be here and have something to say. But that was all private stuff that was in locked diaries and, under the bed kind of stuff. And so that I didn't show to anyone. And I never believed that I could ever be a writer. I thought that was for other people. I didn't know who that was, people who had money maybe. But, I was the only one in my family who went to college. Neither of my adoptive parents finished high school. So it was a great privilege to go to college. And so I never thought I could study writing. I got a degree in social work because I wanted to do some good. And I was a pretty terrible social worker, dropped out after 5 years of doing that and became a waitress. And only then I went back to writing and started taking one writing class at a time at the University of Pittsburgh. And then I found a teacher, Ed Ochester, who was a great teacher who encouraged me. So it was a long trip to get there. And my first book came out when I was 39 years old. So,
Wow, that is amazing. So how did American Bastard come about? Because that is also a very interesting story.
yeah, that book. It sounds hard to believe, but it took me like 20 years to write that book. Again, it's a memoir based on adoption, and it was emotional. It was hard to get the information. It was hard to get, my story, my real name, all the information took years to get to find my birth mother. So it took 20 years to write. I never thought it would be published, and sent it out for 4 years and was just about to give up when Red Hen, when it won the Red Hen Nonfiction Contest. So I just kept going with it. And it was something I was driven to write. So I was really grateful that it got through eventually.
Mm. So this is a very personal story. And I always like to ask authors, I mean, writing by itself is a personal thing because you taking something that is close to your heart, that reveals something about yourself, and you're making that available publicly. How did it feel to share something that was so deeply personal um, with the world?
Well, I think that's one reason it took 20 years was because, I wasn't mature enough as a human being or as a writer to do that yet. And I kept running into roadblocks, emotional roadblocks. I had been in therapy for many years, but I had to continue to work on the adoption part of things, because it's really, it's about trauma. So I had to do more work on that. And then I didn't know how to write that story. And I had to, mature as a writer also. And then still, as you said, there was the fear of telling this story. I didn't know, and it was, I want to be clear that it is my story, but it's not just about me. I wanted to write about, how the culture looks at adoption, and to, sort of tell it from the adoptee's point of view, which in my estimation has not been told yet. The American culture at least whitewashes this idea of adoption, trying to make it nice and happy, and it's not always that way. So that was really the part that was driving the book.
And there is a lot about adoption, positive and negative, out there, and somewhere there's the truth in between. And I think you were wanting to somehow give people a glimpse of the truth.
Right, the truth as I know it, as an adoptee who's lived it, and I've read a lot about it. I've gone to adoptee meetings, adoptee conferences. I've worked on it in therapy, as I said, and most adoptees are not willing to search, or if they are, they're not willing to talk about it. There's so much shame around it. There's so much withholding around it. So this story hasn't been told. You're right. There's a lot out there, positive and negative. I was just really trying to complicate everything here, and I'm not anti-adoption at all. I just want it to be looked at in a more open and complex way.
Jan, tell me a bit about the cover of the book, because I'm always fascinated about how people decided on the cover.
Okay, so you have the cover up there. Yeah, I have the cover here. It's so this is a picture of me at 6 years old. I was obviously a tomboy, so I'm shirtless, pointing a toy shotgun at the camera. And so obviously I'm wearing high tops. I'm angry. I'm an angry little kid. And I knew that it was kind of, it was very intuitive. I knew if I ever published this book that this would be the cover. I had a vision about it. I felt like it would be red and black. I just saw it happening many years before. And so that's one thing that kept me going with the writing, because I had seen the cover, a vision of the cover, not in a dream, but I had just imagined it, and it came to be. So this was an actual photo, and I found the photo is kind of amazing, and I didn't, my adoptive parents are no longer alive. I don't know if my birth mother is still alive. I didn't talk to any of my relatives before I published the book. I feel like it's my story, and I firmly believe that no matter what a writer is writing, that writing is no place to settle scores. Writing is no place to, get back at anyone. And that's not what this is about. This is about, as I said, trying to complicate the idea of adoption and tell my story.
You mentioned some very valid points there, because I think that often holds people back, including myself. How do you get to the point where you realize that it is your story? And even if it involves other members of your family, it's not about them. It's not for them. It's for yourself. It's about yourself, and you're writing it from your perspective. And you're not doing it to your family members, because I think that's often how it's perceived. It really has nothing to do with them. It's all about yourself and wanting to heal yourself.
Right. And it's not therapy. It's, I believe it's not therapy, it's not healing. It's, although that may be a side benefit, it's about writing the best book I can write about this. And but I agree with you, and I've taught for 30 years, and I tell my students, look, if this is your life, your time on earth, what do you want to say? You have the right to write whatever you want to write, and do it now, say it now. Nobody can tell you, what you should or shouldn't write. And having said that, you want to have integrity about what you're doing, and you want to, really run everything through that, that that integrity, and say, is this the way it happened? Is this fair-minded? Is this the best story I can write in the best way? So that's one reason everything takes so long, because if you're trying to, work with the craft of writing, deal with the, any moral judgments that you're making along the way, it gets very complicated really fast.
Mm.
So
I can imagine how complicated it is writing something like this, because you're wanting to tell your story, be authentic as you possibly can be informative, but you also want to write it in a manner where it's makes for compelling writing so that people would want to read your story. So there's a fine balance between making all those things work and turning it into a piece of literature that people would want to read.
exactly, and that's where the craft of writing comes in. And this went through like 9 versions, and I had many people read it, give me feedback. And look, it's just because, as I told my students, just because something happened to you doesn't make it interesting. No one really cares what happened to you. You might, but the point is, what is the compelling story? What makes the book, interesting and necessary to read? And if you don't have that story, don't write it. And I felt like there was something there that I was certainly compelled to write about. And that's why the whole memoir is focused on adoption. For example, I've been married for almost 30 years, and my husband doesn't appear in the book. I mean, I think he appears in one line or something. So it's not about my life, because my life's not that interesting. It's about being adopted and that journey of adoption.
Mm, yeah, I totally get that. Can I ask you, is it possible for you to read something out of the book that will give people a kind of a sense of what your story is about?
Sure. I'll start with something towards the beginning. So, so the dedication of the book is, this is for the lost ones who never knew where they came from. This is against the ones who pretended the loss never happened. And as I said, I was born in a place called Rosalia Asylum and Maternity Hospital in the Hill District of Pittsburgh. And it was called a home for unwed mothers at that time. Women would go there, have their babies, leave the babies there, and it functioned as an orphanage. So I was there the first year of my life. And this is about that time in Rosalia, or refers to that time. After the tearing and rolling. After the tearing and rolling, you're an infant somewhere in a crib, in a room full of cribs. Someone is taking care of you. You don't know who. Who is the person who picks you up? Is it a woman? Is it a nun? There is no story in sight. No same loving face, blood of my blood face. The smells, the feel of the rolling and tearing are gone. Gone where? No face, who has your face? No way of knowing who is who. What hands are these? Why are they different every time? There is no bonding taking place. The story is fractured here and forever after. Then strangers come to gaze at you, touch you, wonder about you. They decide to pluck you out of there and make you theirs. These strangers will take your name away and hide it. The government will cooperate. It will take months and months for this baby trade to be completed, a baby in exchange for money. Meanwhile, someone is feeding you. Is it a kind person? What do they smell like? You will never know these hands again. You will be taken to a strange place. People will start calling you the lucky one, the chosen baby. No one sees that your story is gone, that you are being handed off like a football. From now on, everyone will pretend that your first story never existed. They will act and want you to act as if you are one of them, their blood, their faces, their world. You know that to survive, you will have to do this. You will have to pass. But your new mother has dark hair and brown eyes. Your father has dark hair. Their noses are not like yours. Your white blonde hair shines sickly like the odd light in a bad painting. Later, you look at your cousins. They have beautiful long eyelashes, all of them the same. You value how others resemble others. You long for it. In first grade, you refuse to make a family tree. Your parents and teacher suggest you make one based on your new family. You refuse.
Jan, that is very, very, very touching. And, just listening to you read that section definitely would make me and anyone I know think want to read the book. So for anyone watching this on Amazon Live, the book is in the carousel. So please, reach out, get a copy of this amazing book. Um, how do you feel now that the book is out there? Um, you know, I can, sort of, I'm sure there must have been a lot of anxiety before you actually published the book. But now that your story is out there, how does that make you feel?
That's a good question. I was really freaked out before the book came out, and I thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done this, but it was too late, and I thought, oh my, and I felt really vulnerable, and then after I did a couple readings, public readings, I did one in Youngstown, I did one. I did a couple large, public readings. I did my book launch in Pasadena with Red Hen, and after that, it was fine because I got some really good responses. I was afraid that, I don't know what I thought. I was making up things in my head. I was thinking that, adoptive mothers were going to be angry with me. People were going to be angry with me, and I would be okay if they were. But that hasn't happened yet. I'm sure it will. But I've got a lot of positive responses, and what happened is that I felt really so much better just having this out. I felt like finally I'm not struggling to get it out. It's out, and it has a life of its own, and whatever that life is, I'm happy with. I just wanted it to be out and wanted it to be said. And in the past, when I've read some poems from my other books that have had to do with adoption, I have had some adoptive mothers come up to me, and some of them wanted to talk, some of them were not happy, and I've had some good experiences, good conversations, and that, to me, that's the best thing that can happen. They weren't all happy conversations, but as I said, and as you said, I'm not writing about them. I'm writing about my experience, and I can understand if adoptive parents might affect them or offend them in some way at times.
But you're right about nuances in there that people may not think about. You know, the fact that you didn't look like your adoptive family, and the feelings that generates within you. What do you do with those feelings? What do you do and children can be pretty nasty at school. Let's face that, whether it was back many, many years ago, but things haven't changed. Children can be pretty nasty, and that's very tough for a child who may not be able to talk about how that makes them feel at home, um, or to anyone else for that matter. And that has all kinds of psychological um, complications that it can cause. And so you touch on those things very, very candidly,
Yeah,
and I think will help other people.
yeah. I've gotten a lot of emails from adoptees who are saying that it's really helping them and saying some things that they haven't seen before, and that it's really, you know, it's that they've gotten the book and it's made them feel like they're part of something for the first time. They're part of, a family of adoptees, because that's the whole thing. We're not really part of a family. And family is often a dirty word for adoptees, whereas the adoptive parents think that sometimes think that they've made everything just fine, and it's not fine. And that's part of the message. And what I'm lobbying for is conversations and talking about it, with the adoptee, before they're 40 years old, and telling them who they are. Because walking around and not knowing your name, not knowing your background, your medical history, is not a good feeling. It's a really lonely, lost feeling. And even, it still affects me. Like, I still don't know my medical history when I make medical decisions. I've made serious medical decisions based on not knowing things. And, that really angers me, but, that's just the way it is. And, it's personal, but it's I think it's in the book where, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I had a hysterectomy, and they were asking me about medical history. I said, I don't know. And I said, just take everything out because I don't know. And that's kind of a big decision.
It
And
is. That's quite massive. And when a doctor says to you, or somebody says to you, and you say, "I don't know," it opens up a can of worms um, for you. Is there ever really a good time to open that can of worms? There isn't.
no, no,
You
no.
know, and every time somebody asks you something, you literally spend your life with this identity crisis. Um, of not knowing. And what makes us human is that sense of belonging. Everybody wants a sense of belonging. So it's
Yeah.
like you kind of feel like, who do I belong to? Where do I fit in? Um, and that's tough. And I think a lot of people would thank you for writing so candidly um, about your story and opening up the can of worms that others may not have felt comfortable enough to do. So great job on this book, and I would encourage anyone watching this either live or on the replay to go and grab a copy because I think it's a useful resource for anyone out there who's currently feeling lost because they're in a similar situation. Because you're not the only one.
I know that. I know that. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
But thank you so, so much for spending this time with us. I think we could easily talk for an hour, if not more, if we really went into into the book, but you've given us a little bit of a glimpse. And so I want to thank you for that. Thank you for being on the show with us. And congratulations on getting your book out into the world.
Thank you, Brigetti. I appreciate it. All the
It's
best.
It's a pleasure. And to anyone else watching the show, a huge big thank you for watching us live or on the replay. And I would encourage you to go and grab a copy of this book. For now, thank you for staying with us. Take care. And until next time, we will see you on the next episode of the Writer's Corner live show.